Hi guys, so welcome to Dealing with Failure on the Trail with Mantrailing. My name's Kathryn Jones. I've been an instructor now with Mantrailing Global for just over 4 years. I've been lucky enough to travel most of the UK, some of Europe and America to teach mantrailing as a sport. Everything I talk about tonight is mantrailing as a sport, but equally it can be applied to any kind of dog training sport or I think your own mindset in general. The reason I started doing this webinar was because recently I had some failures myself. I had some trails where things went a little bit wrong. I started to play blame game. I started to blame myself, blame my instructor. Everybody was a problem apart from what I was doing. The wind, whatever, I'd make an excuse for a dog's behavior rather than actually sitting down and going, hold on a minute. Failures happen for a reason. It's not happened because it's just plucked itself out of thin air. Things go wrong because things go wrong. And I need to step back and look back at what's happening with me and my dog when these things happen. So this webinar was born out of that. I have a long background in behaviour, specialising in aggression cases. And a lot of times we deal with failure then as well, when things go wrong with the dogs or when our training plans change. So we have to adapt. So what I've done is put together these slides, had a conversation, and kind of maybe hopefully it will make you think about things when they go wrong mantrailing. It might make you think about look at things in a different way when things are going wrong, as opposed to going flipping out, the world's failing, my dog quote unquote didn't find the hidden person, the trail layer or the misspur. It's not the end of the world. We can all cope. Because otherwise it can get very bit disheartening when things go wrong. So it's me, let's get started. So tonight we're going to run through some bits and bobs, but we're going to really talk about what is failure in mantrailing, what does failure consist of with mantrailing as a sport, obviously applicable to operational styles. How do we build success? How are we going to build success with these dogs, looking at foundations, looking at things we can do in order to make sure that we have successful trailing, and then how do we avoid failure in the future? Failure is unavoidable, but if we can avoid the majority of failure, then that makes a big difference. And then kind of learning curves of dealing with failure when we're trailing. There are lots of things that we can learn. This is by no means like a perfect webinar on how to solve problems. This is a hopefully you can identify something webinar where you can see that actually that would make sense in the future. I'm going to take that and I'm going to go ahead and use it with my mantrailing. So what is failure? Failure is defined as a lack of success or the inability to meet expectations. So within mantrailing, we can quote unquote fail a trail. A trail can be failed based upon hundreds of different things, but normally it's dog not really getting to the trail layer or the misspur. The dog doesn't seem to kind of get the game. One thing that we can find as a failure is the dog doesn't follow the trail accurately. So any of you guys that map your trails using Mantrailing app or Garmin or whatever, some people get really hung up on the fact that the red line and the blue line aren't very close and the dog's gone miles this way and miles that way. And that's seen as failure in our mind. Even if the dog's got to trail layer, because the dog wasn't accurate and wasn't what we expected to do, that can become failure as well. Not working as a team, kind of arguing each other on the trail. I see a lot of disjointed teams that the handler's kind of pulling the dog around, the dog's trying to go one way, it's not really working together. And I think that can also be a failure with mantrailing. Not meet expectations. So within a lot of dog training, our expectation is that the dog does X, Y, Z. It's quite specific. The dog sits, that's a specific action. The dog lies down, that's a very specific behavior, specific action. Because mantrailing isn't really built out of specific things, it's the dog does this behavior, it follows the trail in that way, in this environment, in this specific temperature, at this specific pouring it down with rainness. We can have expectations that our dogs will do X, Y, Z, and when they don't do those things that we expect, and even if they get to the end of the trail and everything's fine, but if on the trail you expected them to go right, but actually they went really, really right and carved around on air scent and it didn't meet your expectations. So for us, that still feels like failure. My dog didn't do what I expected it to do, and I thought I could read it with what usually comes out, or I didn't do what I expected to do. Why is it making it so complex? Why is this dog seemingly making things harder? So we start to think that things are going wrong, things are failing, and the expectations that we met because the dog isn't doing what we thought it was going to do. Not being able to read your dog. This comes a lot on the workshops I do. People go, well, how did you know the dog was going to do that? Or how can you read that? Love, because I've been doing it 10 years, working with dogs. I can read dog behavior. I've been mantrailing for a long time. I can read mantrailing behavior. You're still learning. But people find that as a failure when they feel like they can't read the team. So it's something that failure isn't like a black and white thing. It's very much personal to the person and the team and the dog you're working with. I have teams that work with that have multiple dogs. So myself, I trail 2 springers. They trail completely differently at this moment in time. One is a baby and she's doing all intensity work, so she is wild. And then I have an older one who I've been doing it from the beginning of my journey. He's 4 and he trails vastly differently to most spaniels now. So my expectations change with him. And I can read him now, but my puppy one, I'm finding her harder to read because she's still learning. Dogs being unable to follow the trail is also seen as a failure. So dog doesn't start, doesn't work in a way we expect it, and people feeling like, well, my dog didn't do it the same as Sally's dog did, because Sally's dog was really, really fast, and my dog took 5 minutes where she took 2 minutes to do the same length of trail. Well, 100 meters of trail for some dog can do it in a minute and a half. Another dog might take 5 minutes, because they're very vastly different things are happening, and there's different priorities of things that are happening. So failure is very, very personal to you as a handler, to you as a person, to you as a team. And actually, if there's instructors on this, to you as an instructor, what you see the failure on the trail and what your student sees the failure on the trail are 2 different things. And you've got to look at it and go, right, okay, so my expectations were this. Why am I holding all my value in this expectation? If I expect the dog to find the person in 2 minutes flat and not deviate from the trail, then what is my training doing in order to meet that expectation? Any of you guys you all got a dog, that's why you're here. Now, whether you do mantrailing, obedience, tricks, IPG, security dogs, protection dogs, whatever your thing you do with your dog outside of mantrailing, just being a pet, your expectations will be, when I ask my dog to sit, it will do this action. When I ask my dog to come, it will do that action. Because mantrailing is so different from other sports, and it's so different from a lot of life we do. We don't dictate things in mantrailing. We kind of sit back and enjoy the ride a little bit. We work as a team, but we are enjoying the ride. That we can find it very difficult, and our expectations become higher. I think actually you would think they would become less, but they actually become higher because people expect the dogs, because they're doing something that's natural to them and something that's exciting. We expect the dogs to really just do it, and when they don't do it as expected, it really plummets our kind of thought process. The other thing that we worry about as handlers, and that we get kind of hung up, is the fact that there's a lot of dopamine being released when we're mantrailing. So when we're mantrailing, the dogs are having loads of success. You're having loads of success. Your brain is on a massive, massive chemical high because you think it's awesome. The dog's doing awesome things. You're doing awesome things. That's why people get addicted to mantrailing so quickly, because your brain loves it. It's like gambling. And when your dog doesn't meet those expectations, or when your dog, quote unquote, it fails, it doesn't do the thing you expected it to do, your brain crashes. And you go, that was awful, that felt disgusting, because your brain goes, no, we need more dopamine. We don't like this. Don't be doing that again. We need more dopamine. So we start to put more expectations on those dogs as well. If I'm talking a little bit fast, guys, please do say, because when I get quite passionate, or when I get a little bit excited, I talk a little bit too fast, and I am trying to consciously not talk. So I've taught this a little bit, but it's not meeting expectation. Our expectations, our instructor's expectations, and our dog's expectations. So dogs' expectations. Dogs have a dopamine crash too. So when they expect something to happen on a trail, so when they expect to find a trail layer behind a tree, or when they are working really, really hard but are not getting enough reward, they can have a dopamine crash as well. We can't study it as well as in humans because humans can tell us what's going on, but you will see in dogs, we've all seen it, a dog comes toddling around a corner trailing, thinks it's in proximity, looks behind the tree and goes, they're not behind the tree I thought they were behind. That's a good hiding tree. Why is nobody behind the hiding tree? And then that dog goes into really, really wild hunt mode. And it's like, where's the person? Where's the person? Where is my reward? Gets there and goes, oh, thank goodness it's you. That dog isn't working on the like, yeah, everything is awesome. That dog's tipped into stress because they didn't get their dopamine high in the way they thought they were going to get it. And that can actually tip into adrenaline. So some dogs that are put into too hard a trail or have expectations of where a trail layer is going to be, the trail layer hasn't met their expectations as well. That's another flip side. Those dogs can have a dopamine crash and then an adrenaline spike and actually a cortisol stress hormone spike, which then plays into other things because cortisol can stay in the system for up to 48 hours in dogs. So actually, when we work with expectations, we have to understand that there's loads of people that are involved in failure on a trail, but mainly tonight we're kind of talking about the human aspect as us as a handler, but instructors also have expectations what's going to happen. Your dog does, trail layer does, spectators, everybody has an expectation what's going to happen because we all have our own thought processes. So a lot of this comes down to what we think is going to happen. So how do we build success? How do we try and reduce the amount of failure that happens on the trail? Everybody goes, go back to foundations. You need to revisit foundations. It's a really, really broad thing to say. And it's very individual to teams. So I've been told before, you need to revisit your foundations. I'm like, okay, so I can't read my spaniel. He goes too fast. I can't slow him down because then that interrupts him. He's very line sensitive. They go, revisit foundations. I'm like, so what are the foundations I need to revisit here? Is it my line handling? Is it picking a different dog at this point because he's mental? Like, what is the foundations here? And people will say it to you all the time a lot in Mantrailing. They'll go, visit the foundations. What are the foundations? Break it down. My dog is struggling to start the trails. I don't feel like taking scent. Okay, let's revisit the foundations of the start. Can my dog take scent? Does my dog actually understand what's happening here? Is the area too contaminated to start in? Break that down again. Foundations are those little building blocks into what we're doing. And sometimes when it wobbles up here, it means that something down here is gone. And it doesn't mean that we've got to completely start again, loads of intensity starts, loads and loads of environmental stuff. It just means that somewhere there's a little brick that maybe we didn't put enough cement in. We didn't quite make it strong enough and it's just making the top wobble. It doesn't mean you've got to do everything. It means taking yourself apart and having a look at what's happening. It's looking at it properly and working with somebody to help you. They're very individual. So when I had a really, really crappy trail captain where he was allowed to go 400 meters off the trail completely wrong direction. I didn't know, it was double blind. And anyone that's trailed with any sort of spaniel will know that when they aren't sure, they just hunt faster. And I'm following and going, yeah, I think we've got this. This is brilliant. No, complete nightmare of a trail. Took me 3 months before that dog gave me a negative again. He just ran and ran and ran and ran on trails. He would literally drag me as far as he could go, then go, I've lost the trail, circle like a lunatic, and then just run. And it was the most hectic and serious out of control I've ever seen that dog, because he wasn't getting his dopamine hit, because he was finding Mantrailing exceedingly stressful. So I completely stripped him back and I went, okay, you know how to trail because you're actually getting so stressed that you can't find this person that we have a problem. So we changed it into really long, straight hunting trails. I had a person 100 meters and it was straight, find them. So he didn't have to think, he just had to find them. And he had success finding somebody. Then I put the turns back in. It didn't mean that I started with intensity starts for those trails. It just meant he had rewards along the trail. He found a person, brilliant. He found a person, brilliant. He found a person, brilliant. He found the same person multiple times. But he found the person, and for him, he was like, oh my goodness, I didn't lose them. I've got my reward. All is good with the world. Whereas went on that trail, it all got to pot, and eventually we did find the trail layer, but he didn't find them. We stumbled upon them / shouted for them. It was a difficult situation for him personally, and I didn't realize how much that failure had affected him. It certainly affected me because I thought I was a complete idiot, and I clearly couldn't read my dog and the world was ending. But I've learned from that failure, and actually it's made me read him a lot better. When we revisit the end of the trail, we revisit our trail layer. A lot of foundations can crumble when the trail layer doesn't do as they're told. We've all been in a situation, whether you are a handler, whether you are an instructor, whether you are a trail layer yourself, where you've come around the corner and the trail layer is not where they're supposed to be. You as the trail layer stood there going, I don't think I'm where I'm supposed to be. And the dog has gone, you're not where you're supposed to be. Because when we do it as a sport, we know where that person is, or we have a rough idea where that person is even if it's a double blind, we know they're in a certain area. So I'll clarify some terms. Blue line trailing is where everybody knows what the trail is. Single blind is where the handler doesn't know what the trail is, but the instructor knows the trail is. Double blind is only the trail layer knows what the trail layer is. But they're usually, when we do it as a sport, they're really within a defined area. They're within 600 meters of a start point, or we have access to a map to help us if we need to. They're never really like missing people. So the trail layer isn't doing expected, which means the reward is not going to be delivered in the right way. If a dog comes around the corner and the trail layer is not what they're supposed to be, and everybody goes, right, okay, we've lost Ben again, crap. The atmosphere changes, and when a dog eventually gets that person, that kind of success is tainted with failure because you didn't find the trail layer by yourself. We had to shout for Ben. Ben wasn't where he's supposed to be, so he's created failure. Dog gets the reward, but it's tainted with like this chemical taste where everybody's like, oh, wasn't quite what we wanted, shit. And there's a bit of a negative, and you tend to be on the way back. You don't party with a dog. So the end can taint a whole trail, really. So when we look at things that are going wrong, we need to have a look at how the reward's delivered, who's delivering the reward, the trail layer, are they trained? Do they understand the game at hand? Just being a good handler doesn't make you a good trail layer. Being a good instructor doesn't make you a good trail layer. Actually, I find some instructors are the naughtiest trail layers because they never get a chance to practice. So when they disappear into a bush, they're a pain in the bum because they're so excited the dog's found them, they throw the pots at their face, which is hilarious. Because they're so excited someone's found them, like, put the pots away, stop rewarding the dog, it's supposed to be sitting. Which is nice. Enthusiasm is good. But on the flip side, actually, too much enthusiasm can frighten a dog. So it's all swings and roundabouts. Revisiting those expectations. I love Mantrailing because it's an individual dog sport. You don't need to compare yourself to other people. But it's highly competitive people like Mantrailing because we got that lovely dopamine high. So what happens is we get really competitive people join Mantrailing who want to have fun with the dogs and not be competitive, and they become immediately competitive because Bob's got a Springer Spaniel who does this. Cara's got a Springer Spaniel who does this. Why are they not both past the level 1 at the same time? And our expectations are, well, if your Spaniel can do that, my Spaniel can do this. No two dogs trail the same. I've had whole lists of dogs work with me. I've seen mothers, grandmothers, cousins, different dogs in the same handler, different handlers, whatever. They never trail the same because it's an individual dog's thought process, individual handler's thought process. So our expectations of, well, I think my dog should be doing this because that dog's been doing it the same amount of time as my dog. Yeah, but that dog's been doing it weekly for the last year. You've bobbed him maybe once a month. So you're not going to be at the same level. And actually, some dogs are just very good at mantrailing. Like some people are very good at athletics. Comes down to genetics, come down to the look of the draw. Some people are just very lucky and it's very annoying. Because if I want to stay thin, I've got to do a hell of a lot of walking and exercise. I can't eat all the chocolate I want. My other half, eat all the chocolate he wants. Don't matter. Don't put an ounce on. And that comes down to sometimes genetics. So we have to revisit those expectations as an individual. And if you are an instructor working with students, you've got to communicate with them and go, I understand your expectations are you want to be where Bob's at, but actually your dog's achieving some really cool things. It's just trailed through urban, it's just got across the road all by itself and worked really well. Just ignore the dog on the trail and normally it would have barked. It's just taken scent from a car seat, whatever. You've got to find those successes and go, I know you want to be over there doing those things, and that magical trail that's 600 meters long with 40 turns, and a rainbow comes mid-trail, whatever your expectation is. But let's actually look at what your dog's achieving and change that expectation of my dog's not good enough to my dog's just achieved some flipping awesome things right now. And I can build on those foundations of my dog's awesome, so let's just keep building it. It all comes down to mindset on it at the end of the day. A lot of this whole webinar is based on your mindset. Is what do you consider failure? What does your dog consider failure? Well, for me, when my dog fails at mantrailing, the only failure it's got is that I've probably done something wrong. I'm going to kick myself up the arse the hardest if this idiot's done something wrong, as opposed to dog, because dogs don't intentionally, they're not humans, they don't intentionally go, oh, well, I'm going to trail wrong tonight, so you're never going to trail again. Or I'm purposely going to follow that squirrel, so you'll be really, really mad at me. No, the dog follows the squirrel because it's a dog, not because it's done it to make you mad. Dogs, as much as I'm sure they do understand what we're on about, don't have the same thought process of emotions, because their brains don't prioritize social things like we do, like trying to become the top leader of the pack or whatever way you want to describe it. But we have a lot of our brain is to do with social and survival, whereas the dog's brain is just survival, and it's only going to do the things that make it feel good. And if chasing a squirrel makes you feel much better than finding Ben in a bush, the dog's going to chase the squirrel. It's not to piss you off. It's because it feels good to chase a squirrel. And one day they might get that damn squirrel. And when they do, you're screwed. Because once you start, if it happens at Mantrailing, you're really done. So, sorry, I'm twittering about squirrels now. So don't know where that's come from. Changing the norm. So alongside all of this is, what is the norm for that dog? What's a normal trail? Has this trail changed what's considered normal? Is it not a failure? It's just different from it. And it's just different normal trail. So if your dog is normally like completely shit hot and you're like, it's amazing and things are my dog just gets mantrailing, it's awesome, and you stride out your trail knowing damn well you're going to find a trail there and everything's awesome and you get lots of praise, and you've done it always in rural, and then you do a trail in urban, you're going to meet failure pretty quickly because it's very different for the dogs, and because it's not the norm. So when you're looking at those building success and revisiting those foundations, actually you're going to meet those failures, but failure is part of that learning. It's normal. It's not a failure really for me. It's a learning experience. And that's what I've started to call these things. If things go a little bit wrong, I'm like, yeah, that went to shit, but this is a learning experience. What did I learn out of this going a little bit wrong? Actually, my line handling's crap. I was stood in the wrong place. I blocked that junction. I haven't actually trailed my dog in this urban before, so I'm going to practice that. I'm actually going to take my dog for a walk in a more urban environment. So today I was out. So I've got a rescue German Shepherd who's in me for rehabilitation. He's part of a police case, so he's going to stay with me forever. First time today, I took him in town. I walked him through the middle of town, really quiet, dead town. I knew he had an issue with people. I knew he had an issue with dogs. I've seen neither of those in an environment I can control. I walked him through town with Titan. So I had about 80 kilograms, about, I don't know what that is in pounds, 120, 140 pounds of dog, because I had two of my shepherds. Turns out Grim is rather dog reactive. So when I was walking down the street and he spotted the little terrier across the road and flew across my face, my expectations were, this is what I was expecting. I thought I might get a grumble. Didn't think I'd get a kamikaze ninja. So my expectation was different because we changed the environment. So I'm going to step back now and revisit my foundations with him. And the first thing is going to be a damn good heel under control, and then focus on me and working on the other dogs. I have a plan now. That's revisiting my foundations with that dog. And to build success, are we asking the right questions when we look at things? So we said at the beginning, revisit your foundations, blah, 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 blah. No, okay. So things have gone wrong on this trail. Ask the right questions of yourself. Ask the right questions of your handler, of your instructor. Have you been having a really crappy week this week? Is things changing at home? oh, the dog's like been attacked on the walk, flipping out. That must have been really awful. I can see why tonight she's a little bit off her game, because I think she's still a little jumpy, and cortisol can stay in the system for 48 hours. So it might be that she's a little bit stressed. Tell you what, let's do this kind of trail so we can have lots and lots of success. That's revisiting your foundations. That's solidifying the fun your dog has mantrailing. Because if something negative's happened in the week, or something's negative's happened before they got to mantrailing, or you've had a really crap day, that's going to rock those foundations, because things are not normal anymore. So asking the right questions of yourself and going, yep, am I having a really shit day? Yeah, I am. So let's just do some easy trails. I don't want to think. I don't want to be having to help my dog out, or I don't want things to go wrong. I just want a couple of fun hunting trails to have loads of success. So I go home with a big smile on my face, and I want my dopamine to be to the moon. Thanks. So good. So I probably have covered this in one of my last ramblings on the last slide, but the not a repetition of the same thing foundations. A lot of people go, oh, I think it's gone wrong. I'm going to do 15 intensity starts, and I'm going to wind the dog up to the moon, and that's going to fix everything. No, it's not. It's not going to fix anything. It's probably going to break your finger, depending on your dog. It's not about going, I must do this specific thing. It's about finding what's going to help your dog in a situation. That's so individual. I can't answer that in a webinar. That's you looking at your dog. What we think we have done and what we have done are two different things. People go, yeah, I've done loads of trailing in urban. I don't understand why my dog's having to find such difficulty. 3 sessions in urban does not make a dog that's good in urban. Like, same with rural. 3 sessions in a woodlands does not make a dog going to ignore a squirrel. It's just because you have done it doesn't mean that foundation is there. Some dogs get it after 2 or 3 repetitions. Other dogs need 50 repetitions. It's very different. What does the dog want out of mantrailing? We all love mantrailing. We're all sitting listening to me Twitter on about mantrailing because you love mantrailing. What does your dog like? Does it like the squirrel? Does it want to eat the bloody shit on the floor because it's found something disgusting and that's what it wants? I can build success in your dogs. I can get them engaged with mantrailing, but equally, they're sentient beings. And sometimes they're going to veer off the trail. They're going to eat the dead thing, and then they're going to carry on trailing. It's not a failure. It's what the dog wanted to do. It's still disgusting, but it's what the dog wanted to do. It might walk up to a stranger and go, are you going to give me something for nothing? Because I'm cute. And the stranger goes, yeah, because you're cockapoo. And everybody wants to fuss it. The dog goes, I'm still going to find my trail here. They're always there, but I'm going to get a reward en route. I had a dog on a recent workshop. Halfway through the trail, just stopped, looked at me, wanted some eye contact, wanted a little bit of love. I didn't acknowledge it, but it looked at me and was like, I know you like me, and carried on trailing. For whatever reason, it just wanted some acknowledgement. Sometimes when the dogs are trailing, they stop, they look at their owner, they're like, am I going right? And it goes, don't know. And they go, well, okay, all right, I'll go with you. Or they want a good girl or a good boy. They want things that make them feel good as well. So we do have to understand that these sentient beings want things that we don't always understand as well. Who's building your foundations? I'm not going to go and go, need change instructor, blah, 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 blah. No, what you need to do is, if you're working with the instructor, you need to say to the instructor, so what's the plan for me to get to X situation? What's their plan for you? Is their plan for you to get you through level 1 by the end of the year? Is their plan for you to do X, Y, and Z, achieve X, Y, and Z? Your instructors should be able to tell you what their plan is if you're working with them regularly. Falls apart if you work with loads of multiple instructors and only see them once a year. That is a lot harder, but everybody should have a plan. So whenever I work with any student, whether I've seen that student for 2 minutes or 2 years, I immediately have a plan in my head of, okay, so this student's working on this. This is what I'm going to work towards with them. And I'll verbalize that with a lot of students, or they'll come to me and go, oh, I want to do 400 meter age and I work towards this. That's fine. Okay, here's our expectations. Here's where we're going to aim towards. Here's our plan. Here's how we're going to get there. It's who you're working with is important, because I'm not going to, don't change it. It's not a dig at anybody, but what it is resonating with your instructor and your instructor resonating with you and your dog. I know spaniels, love a spaniel. Give me a spaniel any day of the week. Give me a guardian breed. Give me something that wants to eat me, barky, don't give a shit. Sight hound, I can trail with them, but I do not know the breeds. I'm not great with lurchers. I'm not great with whippity types because I don't know the breed, not my forte. So I wouldn't go, yeah, dude, people do trail with me with sight hounds and they're fantastic. But I can hold my hand up and say there are better instructors out there as well. So might refer them on. I might have a discussion with an instructor that's got more experience in it. I'm going to make sure that if I'm going to support this person, that I can support this person. But yeah, spaniel, definitely, Claire, spaniels rule the world. And I have such a background in large breeds and mastins and guardian breeds that I can do that. It's the sighty ones I never used to see. And I want to make it very, very clear as well. Stress is normal, and working outside your comfort zone is normal. But you're going to have things go wrong in mantrailing, and that's absolutely flipping fine. If you're having loads and loads of successful trails and nothing goes wrong, you are either merrily just wandering about and you have no idea what's happening, more than likely. You're not being challenged in the right way, and you're going to be setting yourself up for a damn big fall soon. Somebody's coaching you and you're not trailing, so somebody is giving you too much. You're like, yeah, you're right, yeah, everything's going fine, and when the dog's actually not doing it, and you're just being lured into false insecurity. I've had that before. It's normal, and things should be going wrong. Basically, you should be having little bits of the trail going, I don't know what's happening here, I need to learn to be better. It's really normal. Oh God, wrong way. So how do we avoid failure? How do we try and reduce the amount of failure that happens on a trail? Learn your dog. Know your dog. Amount of people that come to me, and it's nothing against them, but they have no idea how their dog works. They haven't got the foggiest how they think. Is your dog for food or toys? Oh, it loves cat food. Yeah. Gets into the trail. Dog does not interest in cat food. Turns out dog absolutely loves a tuggy toy, but you as a person don't like tugging the toy. So you don't do it with your dog, but your dog thinks it's the best thing since sliced bread. Actually, my dog's super social, loves people, it'll love the person. You get a set, it's like, where is my food, you idiot? I do not want you to pat my head. I want you to feed me the cheese. So know your dog. And if you're an instructor, you need to know the dogs you're working with on a regular basis. That's going to help you avoid failure. If you know that dog works a lot of air sense, when you come to a corner, it's really windy, that dog's going to come in on the side. You know it's going to happen. You can expect it to happen. You can set up trails to make it harder. You can set up trails to make it easier, depending on the environment. Learn that dog. What does that dog like? It doesn't like anybody talking behind it. So shut up when you're trailing. I'm a bugger for talking too much. The dog likes everyone to party on the way back. So it finds its trail there, gets its reward, and it looks at everybody and goes, I'm awesome, aren't I? And everybody goes, yeah, you are. And the dog goes, I know. Come back on, Taraj. Come on. And I get a lot of dogs with that. So like my spaniels, I play tuggy, reward my spaniels. They won't take food trailing. They find it far too arousing. So we tug all back to the car. People give me feedback. I'm like, yeah, brilliant feedback. I just need to beat the crap out of my spaniel who thinks it's a Malinois and is dragging me across the car park at speed, because that's what they like to do. You know, my spaniel's favorite thing in the world is to play tuggy with me after trailing, and I get all the trail layers to play. I get other people there to play with him, and he thinks he's amazing. Does think he's a Malinois, and I've somehow instilled it in my spaniel puppy as well. She's 7 months old and she thinks she's a Malinois too. It's great, and that works for her. I've tried food with them. They either eat it that fast, they choke on it, or actually they just won't take it. What they want is a party at the end. Okay, that works for them. Quality over quantity. A lot of people on this webinar are mantrailing addicts, which is brilliant. But the problem with it sometimes is you do too much trailing, you get things wrong, and those little wrong things start hanging around, and we start getting multiple failures each session because things just start going wrong, because we're doing a little bit too much trailing. Now, I don't begrudge anybody trailing consistently. Absolutely, do as much trailing as you think necessary, but sometimes have a little bit of look. If things are going a little bit wrong, it's always worth taking a break and coming back and getting some quality over quantity. It's okay to take a month, then come back, do a couple of sessions and get that dog right back where it needs to be and get yourself right back where it needs to be, rather than trying to push through the problem. That's a very human thing to do. Is it doesn't work, I'll just keep trying harder. What are you, a Staffordshire Bull Terrier? Like, you don't need to smack it head on. Mantrailing doesn't, sometimes the more you do, the less you gain with it, I find anyway. Have a plan B, C, and D. If that dog does not do what you think it's going to do, know what it might do next. The dog hasn't followed the trail how you thought it would. It's cut the corner. No, it's got lost because it's coming on air scent. What's your plan? Is your plan to come back to the point where the dog had the trail last? Is your plan to take it forwards to where the trail is with your instructor supporting you? What is your plan here when things start to go tits up? So with Captain, if he starts to look like he's off the trail, I will give him plenty of time to explore, give him plenty of time to check the air scent, check the options, and then I will bring him back to the junction. because I know what he will do is if I don't step in at some point, he will then start aimlessly aiming in a direction at full pelt, convincing me he is trailing, but actually he is hunting, and then we will end miles off on the wrong on the trail, which doesn't benefit either of us because usually we've gone directly through several bushes and trees and I look like a hairy hag. So I give him time to explore, but the second he starts giving me negatives, head lifts, looking at me, slowing down, I'm like, right, there is no trail here, but if I don't bring him back, he ain't going to bring himself back. He's going to keep hunting. Because we had multiple failures, I'm still correcting the behaviours. Unfortunately, he's my let's learn everything dog, and he's the one with all the problems. The next spaniel should be better, she says, with much hope. Be responsible for your own training plan. Yes, stay consistent with an instructor. There is a responsibility on those. But if you are trailing and you are consistently trailing and you are a trailing addict, if you're on this webinar, you're a trailing addict because you're listening to me Twitter for half an hour, be responsible for your own training plan. Whether you've got a logbook, a notebook, a Excel spreadsheet, whatever the way you choose to log your trails, even if it's just in your head, you need to know where you're aiming for. And the only way you can aim forward is you need to know where you've been. You need to know all the things you've done. You need to know the things that went right, things that went wrong. It's all too easy in our logbooks to write, yeah, really good trailing session. Not, well, all these things went wrong, but here's what I learned from them. We don't write the negatives enough. And you need to be responsible for that training plan. If for 2 sessions in a row, your dog's not gone into trail layer because the trail layer is hidden under a tarp, because whatever reason it's not gone in, that's a failure. And that's the problem that you can take control of and go, you know what, my dog's found that really difficult. So at home, I'm going to practice hiding in a tarp and calling my dog, as long as it's not going to upset dog. That's an example. Don't be like frightening your dogs with tarps. But equally, you can then work at home and then you can say to the trail layer, or could you just hold one? It's found the rustling really frightening. And then you're not going to do it for a couple of weeks, and then you're going to bring it back in, you're going to bring it back in. And suggest it. You're responsible for your training plan. You're responsible for your dog's success and failure as much as your instructor, as much as your trail layer, as much as your dog is. So own it and work with it. Failure is not avoidable, so learn to deal with it. I have been guilty of things going wrong, bawling my eyes out, saying I'm never going to mantrail again. That's the end of it. I'm done. I, for some reason, thought it was a really good idea to take my level 1 assessment with Kathryn, my Springer, when I was about 8 months pregnant. And we failed it because ultimately he decided ducks were much more exciting than the trail layer. Failed my plan. Bawled my eyes out on the way home. Decided I was never going to trail again. I was going to shut the business. The world was ending. Why did I get him? Why did I breed him? She should have been a drugs dog. Why didn't I train with a drugs dog? Forget about it. I'm going back to training drugs dogs. And I ran with a half, and he went, "Well, you grow up, you stupid cow. Like you're just spiraling. Stop dwelling in this failure. It's normal." He's like, "When did you ever trail past ducks?" I've never trailed past ducks because I avoided them because I got a spaniel. So when the trail just happened to go past the pond with ducks, all went tits up. It's nobody's fault. It's just ducks. When I retook it again in a couple of weeks, when I was 2 weeks off giving birth, because in my head I was like, oh, I want to get this done before I have a baby, because I'm stupid. It was really, really warm. I was very, very heavy, and it took us 28 minutes to find the trail layer because I had not trailed in that much heat before. I'd not trailed that fat before, and Kathryn was finding it very difficult. I would not keep up with him because I put about 5 or 6 stone on. And then the trail layer was under tarp, which is something I hadn't done with Kathryn. I've been so focused on just getting into trail and work, I hadn't factored in all the changes. Hadn't factored the heat, hadn't factored the tarp, hadn't factored the fat woman following him. So we did it and we achieved, but there was lots of failures involved in that achievement, and it made me work. It made me learn. It could have been avoidable, but it wasn't in this case. Things went wrong. That's life, isn't it? I mean, if anybody lives this hunky-dory perfect life where things don't go wrong, whatever good luck charm you've got, can you share it with me? And the lottery numbers would be wonderful too, because it's life, isn't it? Absolutely, it's life. We have days where things go to shit. Just deal with it. Sometimes we have a cry. Sometimes we eat a lot of chocolate. Sometimes we eat a lot of chocolate and cry. It's usually a large gin. If you see me with a gin in hand, you know it's been a bad day. So it's one of those things. Learning curves in mantrailing. We can't learn in our comfort zone. So if trails are going right all the time, you're going to hit a plateau. I did a webinar beginning this year, last year, about with another instructor, Johnny Carter, about hitting plateaus in mantrailing. When we get all this success, shit hits the fan, and then we go down like a sack of spuds. Things go wrong. That's normal. We're going to hit those things because we can't learn in the comfort zone. We have to hit these plateaus where things go wrong, for us to learn. But if we're not ready for them, or we're not aware they're going to happen, then they can be quite devastating. So when I do behaviour cases, I always say to people, you will be great for 3 weeks. Everything will go fine for 3 weeks. And between week 3 and week 6, shit will hit the fan and something will go literally wrong. And you will ring me in tears going, my dog is untrainable. That's it. I'm selling him to the circus. It's normal. You're going to hit a plateau. And we do with mantrailing. But when you hit that plateau, it's very dependable about where you are, what's happening, like 10,000 different things. So it's not always 8 sessions in you have a fall, or 15 sessions in you have a fall. At some point when you're mantrailing, you'll have a dip. It's normal. Perseverance. I've written the word and I can't even say it.
Perseverance.
Oh no, she's gone off. You can't get better if you don't fail, all right? That's the word I was going for. I wrote a really fancy word and I can't even pronounce it. So whatever. Learning is part of survival as well. So when we're mantrailing, we're tapping into that hunt, prey, kill, devour, blah 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 blah. We are blah, 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 sorry, Lisa, yes, it is being recorded for later. I've just seen your message, that's just ripping it off. We tap into that hunt, prey, kill, devour. So dogs use their nose to hunt the prey. They find the prey. We feed them. We just don't do the kill bit. We do the devour bit. We're tapping into some of that natural behavior they do. So dogs are going to learn what they can eat, what they can't eat. They're going to learn loads of different things. So learning is part of survival. And if the dogs don't fail every now and then, if humans don't fail every now and then, we're going to fail big time at some point. Like, little failures are much better than one big failure, because we can learn from them. We learn if we put our hand on the hot plate, it's going to burn. We don't do it again. Dogs learn if they go 200 meters in the wrong direction, there's no scent down there and nothing to find, they're unlikely to do it again because there's no reward in the behavior. It's not worth doing it, is it? Change your mindset from failure to learning. This is not a failure. This is a learning situation for me. It's a learning transition. I can go here, well, it all went to pot, but here's what I learned. My line handle needs to be better. I need to do more work in urban. My dog doesn't take scent properly. I'm struggling with some of his breed behavior. What's my solutions? I'm going to film the trails. I'm going to speak to my instructor. I'm going to set up trails that help me learn. I'm going to revisit my foundations by doing X, Y, and Z. Here's where things went wrong. Here's my plan. I'm not going to have a meltdown in between. I might have a little cry, but I'm not going to have a meltdown. And I'm certainly not going to take anything out on the dog. I'm not going to shout at them and go, well, you're shit because you didn't find the person, blah, 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 blah. It's a dog. It doesn't know there's any urgency to finding an idiot in a bush on a Thursday night, because gets lost every Thursday night, because apparently we can't keep people on leads. Right. And here so ends my 40-minute ramble on failure on the trail, guys. I can't give you a one-size-fits-all, oh, this is what happens and everything will be hunky-dory once you do these things. Mantrailing isn't like that. You're all here because you do mantrailing, and you all know damn well that there is no specific linear way of mantrailing. It is very loosey-goosey and it's a journey. What I'm hoping with this webinar is made you think, hold on a minute, yep, I can identify that's going to be a failure and I can think about it in a different way, and actually maybe I can improve it. So feel free to pop your questions in the chat, guys, or verbalize them. It's probably going to be better to pop them in the chat and then I might get you to expand on it verbally, rather than people just going, and asking questions. So this is put my dog fluffed his assessment. He ran after a cat and then followed the cat trail to find the cat. I crashed. I learned from it. I learned more of what his tail was telling me. Yeah, flipping cats on trails, squirrels, ducks, you name it. There's always been a dog that follows it. And it's shit, and it is shit. But so you learn from it. It just happened, of course, to be on your assessment as opposed to like any other trailing session. Of course, it would be on your assessment, but it's as long as you learn from it and you went, yeah, I recognise when he switched. I didn't know he switched because we'd never encountered this before. If you've never encountered a cat on the trail, how would you know the body language of my dog is now following something else? If you haven't done it, sometimes we practice in sessions and it's almost a little bit too easy because we don't encounter cats. I've only once had a cat chase us on the trail, which was hilarious because it came for the dog. It did come hunting the dog. It was really good fun. Oh dear. Any questions, guys? Oh, super. My thing just goes weird. Love this, and then we'll think about why and where for Daisy's trails and quick analysis of me. Yes, it was really nice to watch Daisy work the other day, because she's quite a methodical worker. So Val's got a whitehead dachshund, and she's very, very methodical, extremely methodical, and sometimes it looks like she's not trailing, and she is. She's always working, but she's just working in her way, and because she's this far off the ground, and she looks like she's looking, but she's not. She's using her nose. And we had a brilliant epiphany with her where we thought she was looking at some birds on the water, and it wasn't. It was absolutely zip all to do with the birds. The birds were just there. It was all to do with the air centre blown onto the water from a high point. But there's a point where we're like, oh, well, she's buggered about because she's looking at birds, blah, blah, blah. No, it wasn't. It was our perception that she was creating failure, that she was following the birds. It was my perception as someone who didn't know that dog very well that she was looking at the birds. She was not looking at the birds. She was working scent. The birds just happened to be there at that point in time. And that was an assumption I made that potentially could have, if Val didn't know her dog so well and was telling me what was going on as we were trailing, I could have gone, oh, she's looking at birds, just pull her away, blah, blah, blah. She wasn't. She was working, and Val knew her, and she didn't fail. She worked really, really well. When we look back at the video, we can see the point where she's working the air scent. The birds are not even in her eye line. She cares nothing about the birds. She's never chased birds in her life. Because I'm a spaniel person, I was a complete assumption that Dachshund was going to chase that bird and try and kill it. Because I know what my spaniels would have done. They would have thrown themselves in the canal after said bird. So my assumption as an instructor could have created failure on that trail. So starting up a straight trail, different starts rather than always be intensity start. Foundations aren't always intensity starts. They're lots of different things, and it's very individual. And you've got to think about what your individual dog needs. My dog just needed that for a little while, couple of trails, and then we never used it again with him. Claire, my dog's lost his excitement at the start. He still trails eventually, but doesn't seem fussed to get going. Any ideas? Well, it's a good job you're trailing with me soon because we can sort that. He trails fine. I think he's thinking. So Claire's got a Springer Spaniel who's not like a normal Springer Spaniel. He's quite steady. So I don't trust him because he's quite a steady Spaniel, and I don't think they really exist. So I think he's lulling us in for something. And he sets off in his own pace. There is no points for speed in Mantrailing, she says, talking about a Spaniel, which seems to think they need the medal for everything. And he's like a steady Eddie. And he's a nice dog to watch work. He never goes wrong though, does he, Claire? He doesn't set off in the wrong direction. He just takes time. So I don't think it's a failure. I think it's just our personal, we think Spaniel should go super mega fast, and he doesn't. So enjoy
next
it.
to me now, Kathryn. So very steady.
Oh, is Claire trying to talk? Go for it.
I was just saying he's actually snoring next to me, so he's being very steady Eddie at the minute. So
yeah, it takes a minute, and then he mooches. Gerald. Yeah. So there's no points for speed. Put, oh god, stupid thing. Just pass him before we set off. And the trainer looked at me and went on trailing, loved it. Yeah, your dog made a decision not to follow the flipping fox. I can't say the same with my own dogs, can't say the same. A lot of dogs would have followed the trail of a fox. But because we could see, you know, in that situation, you've got visual, you can see where that fox went. You know that dog could have, if that dog switched, you would have known because you would have seen it, or probably smelt it more than anything. So, you know, and then you have the opportunity of learning there. You let a dog follow the fox till it can't get to them, and then it comes back, so it learns not point following foxes, or you step in and don't allow it to follow the fox. That's a personal choice. With everything. Has anybody got any other questions? Have I made your brains fall out? Hopefully. That's the plan. It's always the plan. I'm going to do a little plug, because why not? Thank you so much, everybody, for joining on. Oh, I don't know if anyone's got a question then. Please, please, please don't let a dog think it's failed. Kirsty, yeah. That's a really good one, Kirsty. Dogs don't fail at Mantrailing. We do it as a sport. They never fail because we always find the person. There's never a point when we're doing it as a sport or with the sport method that I use that the dogs fail. Sometimes we don't find them as fast as we think. Sometimes the trail layer is not where it's supposed to be, so we might have to reset that trail and put that trail layer out again. Sometimes we might reset the trail because the trail's going to pot because 10,000 things have happened. Bus full of school kids has landed or whatever. But the dog always finds the person when we're doing it as sport with the methods I use. We don't put the dog back in the car if they don't trail, because it's always about the dog having won. Because it's supposed to be fun. Remember, guys, it's supposed to be fun for you and the dog. It's not supposed to be stressful going Mantrailing. But yeah, always make sure that dog finishes on some sort of reward. It's your personal problem if you think that dog has failed. It hasn't. It's your personal problem. I'm going to plug a little bit. So not only do I do these webinars and provide all this information to you guys and talk Mantrailing non-stop, because my life only revolves around Mantrailing, is I have a Patreon account where once a month I pop a video about something to do with Mantrailing. I'm going to stick this back on before I talk at you guys. Where I talk about Mantrailing and basically help you guys geek out as much as possible. I'm just going to pin myself here. Hold on. There we go, because you obviously want to see my mucky office. I have a Patreon where I talk about Mantrailing every month. Every month is something different to talk about. We talk about the dopamine was the first one, talking about intensity starters and dopamine, how it affects the trails. Last one was about urban. Every month the video goes up talking about a specific part of Mantrailing, and then we have a Q&A 2 weeks later, live Q&A, where we can talk about those things. I'm by no means any sort of oracle on Mantrailing. I am just talking about the things that I see when I'm working. I'm talking about my interpretation of Mantrailing at that point in time. It's my opinion on what I think is happening. I can always be challenged on it. I'm always happy to have a discussion with people about what do you think this is? Actually, I don't agree with that, and here's why. That's absolutely fine. I'd rather people have a discussion with me. So yeah, if you want more Mantrailing geekery, head over to my website that has the link to the online trailing there, or if you just type in Trailing Canines into Patreon, it will pop up. So yeah, once a month I geek out on Mantrailing, which is all good fun. Has anybody else got any questions, or are you happy to disappear into the evening, your brain full of all the things you're going to do with your dog now, to make sure you don't fail and also deal with your failure? You're going to be messaging your instructors tomorrow going, this is what I want to do to help my dog. Super. But if anybody's got any questions and you don't want to verbalize it on this, always welcome to hit me up on Facebook or drop me an email. I'm absolutely happy to have a chat with anybody anytime about Mantrailing, because clearly I don't have enough to do in my day and I would like to be distracted by Mantrailing. Super guys, I'm going to stop recording.